It's hard not to be nervous about the microphone. Can we help our kids? And I suppose to make it broader, it could be anybody that we love, really, or that we're working with. But with respect to children, can we help them transcend this period of unconsciousness that I think all of us have gone through? Or is it necessary for them to go through it on their own? Sometimes I feel quite helpless when my kids are suffering, and I get drawn into the suffering very easily. So I want to be able to help them get there faster.
Yes.
If that makes sense at all.
Yes. Well, first you have how many children?
2 children.
Yeah. How old?
My daughter is 7 and my son is 4.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, they're very fortunate to have a conscious parent. That's you. And their father is conscious also?
Not so conscious. But conscious enough that he's supportive of me being here and being with the kids, so that's something, right?
So there are more children nowadays born, what the percentage is, I don't know, who may not have to go through the deep unconsciousness that we had to go through. I certainly had to. And also there are more children born nowadays to parents who are in the awakening process, in other words, relatively conscious parents. In my generation, I can't think of any conscious parents. There might have been some, but very rare, extremely rare. They are still rare now, but much less so than before. My parents certainly were lovely. I loved them, lovely beings, but deeply unconscious, and that wasn't the normal state. So the question is then how to help them to stay relatively conscious so that they don't get drawn into the mass unconsciousness that still pervades mass culture and the technology that promotes unconsciousness and addictive behavior that children get addicted to. The most powerful teaching is not what you say or do to them, but your state of consciousness at home. So that's the very foundation for teaching your children. It has nothing to do with teaching. The foundation for transmitting consciousness is not even wanting to transmit consciousness to them, but to hold the space of presence as you interact with them at home, and also to hold presence as much as possible as you interact with your husband, because there's a relationship there that will infect them with either presence or pain body. So the most vital thing is, before even thinking of doing anything, is the being conscious there, because they observe how you behave, and they take that on board to some extent. Of course, another influence is the mass culture, especially as they spend more time at school. And then occasionally there may be things that you can point out to them so that they stay in touch with immediate experience, for example, sensory experience. Don't let them lose touch with nature. Many children these days are so involved in technological games, they don't experience nature anymore. It's something totally alien to them, and that's a very harmful thing. It's a great deprivation, of not being deprived of the immediate experience of the natural world, which puts you in touch with the deeper levels of your own being. To experience an animal at home is a great help. I hope you have an animal or
We
two.
do, yeah.
Dog,
A dog.
okay. Yeah. So there's one way already, if children relate to the dog, it's a non-conceptual relationship. There you touch the dog, you look after the dog. Getting them out into nature periodically without the gadgets. They might gadgets that they
gadgets,
usually
right.
have.
Yes.
It goes on for hours. It used to be more television, but now it seems to be even more that, and then the rest of the time there's television, which is the state of semi-comatose hypnosis. Also, so to somehow, it may not be easy because everybody else is doing that kind of thing. Not saying you have to eliminate that completely, but discourage them from spending 100% of their free time with those things. Take them into nature without the gadgets. And encourage them to direct sensory experience, to touch, to feel, to look at things, not to confuse conceptual labeling with true knowledge or experience. Your youngest is four, you said. So at that time they've already 4, they know what things are called and so on. That is, again, so that they don't, when they are learning language, not to equate concepts with reality. When you teach them what it is, encourage them to touch it, to see it, to continue to feel it, not just to say, this is called such and such. Continue to look at it. Otherwise, the moment you have a label, you stop experiencing, and all you have is a mental label.
And they label themselves as well. I mean, I notice this is much more with my daughter, maybe because my son is still young, but she'll come home and say, I'll never get it, I'm stupid at this or that.
Yes. That's a good way to encourage, to point out that not to identify with their thoughts. So if you can occasionally point out that's a thought, it's just a thought, and they don't have to believe in every thought that comes. If you can somehow work with to realize that they are not their thoughts, so that there's a space between them and their thoughts, to observe their thoughts, and just when thoughts come, you can explain it's no more than a thought. It might not be the reality. It's not true. Pain body, they have pain body a little bit, as most humans have. Disidentify from the pain body by pointing out that this is the pain body. I often have said, don't call it pain body for the children. Give it a name, call it something, and occasionally they get taken over by that. Point out to them afterwards, what was that, what took you over, what would you call it, so that an awareness develops. There's the emotion and there's the awareness. So encourage that kind of thing. They are able to look at the emotion that takes them over from time to time, which is associated with certain thought patterns also. And after the event, not during the event as initially, see them, what was it that took you over when you started screaming yesterday? What was that? And then see what does it feel like, or invent some game so that you can make it into something that they can be aware of, and then let's wait for next time it comes and see how that feels. If you have it, then you can point out after you've woken up from your pain body that, oh, that happened to me, the same thing happened to me. Awareness. The key in education is to show the possibility of being aware rather than always being identified with whatever arises in their mind. When I was at the Dalai Lama event in Vancouver last November, October, somebody asked about education, and I suggested to introduce a new subject into the school curriculum, a subject that is more important, more vital than any other subject, and somehow it should flow into every other subject, and that subject is awareness. If we could make awareness into a school subject in the curriculum as the most important one, which one can teach children to be aware of their thoughts as they arise, to be aware of their emotions as they arise, to be more aware of sense perceptions, to be aware of your feelings and other people's feelings. Perhaps one could devise games that promote awareness. We were already talking earlier, the questioner before, it can also be done through the internet. Anything that promotes, I don't work with children, so that other people may be more qualified to come up with these things, who knows. So awareness is the key thing, whether you call it or you don't have to call it that, just practice it. Because if they can remain aware, then everything will be easier in their lives. If they lose awareness, then they have to go through suffering, and then eventually find awareness again through the sufferings they undergo. So it's an interesting thing. I'd like to hear more if people have ideas about what to do with children, how to teach presence to children, awareness to children.
I'd like to hear more too.
So for schools then, I know there are some schools that specialize. There are certain Waldorf schools and others. And it's a good thing. They particularly encourage the students not to get too much lost in abstraction at an early age, to do things with their hands, to make things with their hands. Pottery, all the wonderful thing, to make little simple things out of wood, to stay in touch with the immediacy of the sensory environment, not to get lost, not even to learn reading and writing too early. I believe it's far too early to get into those concepts. In my generation, 6 was the year when you began to read and write, but I believe sometimes these days they try to teach that at an earlier age, which I believe is not a good thing. So there's a lot there that can be done, but the central point of it all is presence or awareness. That's the teaching.
Thank you. Thank you very much.